money invested into yourself is always a good dollar spent. Now, how do you pick a coach, or how is the coaching the right way? I had a lot of angst about that. Like, am I going to see an ROI from hiring a coach?
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Gentle Art of Crushing It show, where we focus on learning and sharing with our listeners all there is to know about how to create success in our lives. This show stands on the shoulders of giants. Our mission is to empower and inspire our listeners to create the life of their dreams whilst having a blast in the process. Let's celebrate life together. Welcome to the show.
Well, hello and welcome to the Gentle Art of Crushing It. Again, my name is Derek. I'm your host this week, and I have with me two guests. I have Jarod and Loren, and we appreciate you guys joining us. So, Jarod, Loren, I don't know anything about you. You don't know anything about me. We're just trying an experiment. If it's terrible, no one will ever hear us. If they're hearing this, it must have worked okay. Introduce yourselves. Give us, each of us, an idea of who you are, kind of a little bit of what you've done. Jarod, you want to go first?
Oh, sure. Yeah, thanks, Derek. Thanks for having us on, man. Yeah, a little bit about me. I, so originally from Fayetteville, North Carolina. Just recently transitioned out here to Phoenix, Arizona about 8 years ago. I guess that's not too recent no more. Man, time flies. That's all right. But you get married, you have kids. We were kind of just talking about that before, man. It's yeah. It flies by. So. But anyways, yeah, just, recently, probably, 2 to 3 years ago, got involved in real estate, it started with reading the Rich Dad, that purple book everybody talks about, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and just totally changed my whole perspective on my financial future, the career, what I wanted to do, and it's always been a burning desire to retire early. I saw my grandfather do that at 50 due to real estate that he owned. And so I always knew I wanted to do something, but just wasn't quite sure, and found my passion in real estate. And yeah, for the past 2 or 3 years, kind of been getting started on that journey. And it's been an exciting, got to just join the Jason Dree's coaching program and met you fine gentlemen, and that's awesome. Looking forward to the journey for sure.
That's awesome. Loren, how about you?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. So originally from Michigan, actually moved to North Carolina, Clayton, so just a little ways away from Fayetteville. 5 years ago, my W-2 brought me here. And then got into real estate, wanted to get into it about 2 years ago, bought my first property in November, so November 19th of last year. And since then, I have purchased 27 other properties, a total of 46 doors. And I did all of that with with creative financing, because I had about $7,000 in my checking account when I started last year. So we've been building a business pretty rapidly, and we're looking to grow another 300 doors next year. So in the process of putting the standard operating procedures in place and hiring a transaction coordinator, and I think we closed on 5 properties just last week, and another 7 under contract right now. So it's been a crazy year. I also have 4 kids, one that's a couple days old, and I work a W-2 job. So it's been a busy last year.
Wow. Clearly, once again, I've outclassed myself with guests here. So, Loren, I want to start with you. So I know you guys have never talked to me before either. I live near the Kansas City area. I manage a hotel as my W-2 job. I've been in the hospitality business most of my life. And I have some long-term rentals and a couple short-term rentals. We actually have one in North Carolina, so clearly we've all made our connection out there. We're out in Carolina Beach area, and we have another short-term rental in Branson, Missouri. And so, but I'm always struck when I hear people do exactly what you just said. Like 2 years ago, I thought about getting into real estate, and now 2 years later, I have 46 doors. Is that right? Did I get that number right?
Yep.
Okay, so about 11 years ago, 12 years ago, I thought about getting into real estate, and today I have 12 doors. What what happens? Like, how does that process work for you to just start and move that fast?
Yeah, so for me, it was, I knew I wanted to grow a big business, right? And I'm not even close to where I want to be. And so from the very beginning, I bought a triplex with seller financing. And from the very beginning, I started putting processes in place that would be scalable. So if I went to go do something, I would think, is this something that someone that owns 100 doors would do? Or would they hire it out? Or would they do something else, right? And so I didn't need property management software, but I got it. I started, thinking of myself as I'm worth $200+ an hour, so I'm not going to go and sand drywall or paint, even though I could do those things. And at some point, you kind of hit these pinch points of like, okay, I'm doing everything as efficiently as I can, but I need X to grow. Sometimes it's time, sometimes it's money. For me, it was money. I knew I could grow, but I needed money, and that's when I met my partner, who had been doing it for 6 years, and he'd been doing a good job and been growing really well. But then when I jumped on, his growth exploded as well, because I had time, I had kind of the process mindset that he, didn't have quite as strongly. And with his resources of connecting up with private money lenders, we were able to, bring in a lot of deals that, we wouldn't have been able to do together. So part of me at first was like, well, do I want to give up 50% equity? But I have way more than 50%, 100% of nothing is way less than 50% of something, right?
Yeah. No, I've heard that before. That's good. That's very good. So, Jarod, are you also going to make me feel bad? What's your real estate journey?
So, first of all, I think that's awesome, Loren. Yeah. You kind of got started a year or two ago, and you're at 46 doors. My journey's a little different. I started out, I did buy a single family, actually in Independence, Missouri. Yep. So right outside of Kansas City. Yep. And, bought it turnkey, renter in place, and really that was my first house I've ever bought myself. I mean, when I moved out here, I met my wife. She already had a home that we moved into. So I was doing all this, and being that it was from a turnkey, company, I represented myself. There was no real estate agent. So it was, just to say the least, it was quite the experience. And on top of that, it was a 1920s house, so you can imagine the inspection report and everything on that. Yes, exactly. And I quickly, right after we closed on the house, quickly learned about sump pumps and the expenses of those, and so on and so forth. So, and honestly, that deal was a good deal. I ended up selling it a year later, right before some of the interest rate hikes increased, and I made some money. We bought it for $75, sold it for $95 in just a year's time. So, but what that deal did is it just got me over that threshold. You hear that, it was just like the analysis paralysis phase. I was digging into education. I drive a lot for my W-2 job, so I was listening to podcasts and knew this was something that I wanted to do. And so when we purchased that first deal, and then I started looking at a couple others, and honestly just wasn't finding anything that was penciling, or it wasn't working out or something. It just, for some reason we weren't able to, like one of them, when you're buying out of state, you're kind of relying on somebody. Like one of them, the whole apartment, or it was like duplex, or I think it was a duplex, and the whole thing was about to fall apart. So anyways, we just kind of ran into some walls, there. But so I transitioned into, okay, I want to be on a real estate journey. What do I need to do? And so we looked at short-term rentals, actually, put a few offers in out here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And when the market was just crazy, kept getting outbid by 15, 20 grand cash, waiving appraisals, things like that. So it just wasn't making sense. And then I, went to some multifamily meetups, and I quickly transitioned because kind of like Loren, he's scaling quick through, single family, duplex, triplex and stuff. I just wanted to scale. And so I saw multifamily as as an option to do that. And so I ended up I'm in 5 syndications now. So through apartments or multifamily, and just closed on 5. And so, and then now through joining this Jason Drees program, I it's one thing you get challenged, right? You get challenged by these coaches and stuff is to, they help you through the limited beliefs. And I just started a business called Optimal Equity Group. And what we're going to be doing is, partnering with multifamily operators and raising money for the deals, so.
Wow. Well, yes, you did make me feel bad. That's good. So help me, for people who may not understand, when you say a syndication, which is a good real estate term you hear a lot, you don't always hear what it means. What is a syndication for simpletons that like myself that might be listening?
Yeah. So a syndication is just where, an operator pulls money together from investors, to raise money, typically for the down payment. These deals are 86%, 80% finance, but they're 50, 60 plus $1 million deals. So coming up with 12, 15, $20 million, a lot of people don't want to have that just sitting in the bank. So they go out, they raise the money from investors, which were called limited partners in the deal. And then not only just for the down payment, for construction, so what they do, they put together a business plan, raise the money, and then you get returns on your money. So depending on the structure of the deal, it could be, a lot of them are 7% pref with a 70-30 waterfall on the back end. So it's a 70-30 split. Where the limited partners get 70%, and then you can get, and the general partners is the operator. There's multiple terms. So the syndicator, the operator, and the general partner are pretty much all the same.
Okay.
But they get 30% of the deal. So
okay.
Essentially, you can, I always like to say when you're doing these deals, you got to determine whether you're a growth investor or a cash flow investor. Because with the value add apartments, you get cash flow either monthly or quarterly, depending on the operator. But typically, it's more on the back end is where at the exit where you see the returns come.
Okay.
You could double your money, in 2 to 5 years if it's a good deal.
So most people. And I don't want to get too in the weeds with syndication because I know Randy's on this channel, does an amazing job and obviously understands it way better than I do. But now, are these open to only what are called accredited investors, which are people who meet certain net worth and income qualifications, or can anyone invest in a syndication?
So it just depends on how the deal is structured. So you got some that are just accredited, where I think it's a 503C, 503 or 506, yeah, 506, yeah, 503C there, 506. Thanks, Loren. And then, or if it's 506B, that means it's open to accredited and non-accredited investors. So, yeah, it just depends on how the deal is structured. And typically, the only difference is if it's a 506C, they're able to market it, on social media platforms or
somebody once described the 506B as 506 buddies because you have to have some level of relationship with the people versus just open to marketing to the general public.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are most syndications 506Cs then, or are most of them?
So all of the ones I've been in have been the 506Bs.
Okay.
And it just really depends on the operator and how they want to structure the deal. I just recently, and again, don't want to get too much into the weeds, heard a podcast talking about, a lot of them actually prefer the 506B because accredited investors can still invest in that deal. But, with the 506C, there's more paperwork on the back end and, just on vetting everybody and the due diligence around that. So just really depends on how it's structured. But yeah, and when you get into this stuff, it's amazing, because it's not just strictly multifamily. There's syndications around businesses. There's there's ATM funds. There's all kinds of things that. Crypto, It's not just particularly real estate, but...
So in a way, a syndication is kind of, to use a financial term, it's kind of like a mutual fund of investing. Similar, right? Like, is that... Yeah. I don't want to make financial planners bang their heads against the dashboard or anything right now, so... So
Right.
did either of you, like, you talked a little bit about over-analysis. Like, how does that play into you? Because I think a lot of people listening, we listen to podcasts because we're trying to figure out, how do I make this work in my life? I mean, is that something you guys still struggle with, ever struggled with? Like, I know for me, looking back, I was way too conservative when I started out. I mean, I started buying real estate in 2011, which, was a fantastic time to buy real estate, even though everybody was scared. But, I mean, they were almost giving away houses at the time, and I was so worried and I had to think through everything. But is that something you guys deal with or not deal with, or you just jump in and see how deep the water is when you land? Or
It was definitely something that I dealt with when I first got started, and even now a little bit. You go to buy your first property, and you're just afraid that everything is going to go wrong. The tenants are all going to leave, the roof's going to cave in, you're going to end up with a money pit, your dog's going to die, and the wife's going to leave. Right? You're just afraid about everything, and then once you actually start doing it, you realize that if you've done your numbers correctly, as problems arise, that's part of being a business owner, is figuring out how to handle those problems. And things are rarely as good or as bad as they seem in the very beginning, right? And so one of the big challenges or struggles I had was we had a hard time finding contractors, or I thought I was going to have a hard time finding contractors, in 2021. Everybody was putting stuff in their house, so everyone talked about how you couldn't find contractors anywhere. So I was buying a triplex that needed about $50,000 worth of work, and I was like, oh, how am I going to find contractors to do all this work? I'm going to have to go up there. It's 45 minutes from my house, blah, blah. Well, once I actually had the property, had it under contract, had it closed on, I just went to work. I got to find contractors, and within a couple weeks, I found 3 or 4 contractors. I got 4 or 5 subs to do different parts of one unit, and then I picked the one that I liked the best, and then they did all the work for the rest of the units. And so it really was, I spent more time worrying about it than problems that actually caused me. And if you put some things in place, there's ways to mitigate your risk. So, I'm not going to give them 60% of my money up front, right? I'm going to give them enough for materials, or I'm going to try to give them nothing if possible, and then give them stages, you get this much done, you get this. You just put plan and action to mitigate the risk and help yourself sleep, because you're never going to get away from all the risk. There's always going to be risk. And honestly, if you're doing something that doesn't have any risk, it's probably not worth doing. But you just figure out how you can manage that risk and how you can sleep at night, because at the end of the day, we all have families we want to go home to, and want to be able to sleep through the night. And it's a passion, but it is a job. It's how to make money. It's not your identity.
Yeah, I think that's really wise. I know for me, if I've identified anything in the last year, looking back at trying to push myself into bigger risks, and by risk, just trying to dive in before I knew if there was water in the pool or not. I definitely think in the past I had to figure out, do I know where the contractors are? Who am I going to use? All that stuff, maybe even before I put the offer in on the house. And I think you're right. I had someone tell me a while ago how you just need to solve the problems as the problems appear, instead of trying to solve every problem before you step into taking that action step. So, Jarod, what are your thoughts on overanalysis?
Yeah, so when you're talking about problems, I heard somebody say, problems are just learning lessons, right? And, for me, it kind of going to what Loren was talking about, and, what you just said, Derek. I mean, I was in analysis paralysis probably for a year or so before I really, took that step to put an offer in on a house, because it was scary. I've never done it before. But once I did that, I learned so much along the way. And I think I learned a lot more from experience than I do from reading books, listening to podcasts. I mean, that's all great information and great education, but once I get my hands dirty, start doing it, that's where I get a little bit more confident in what I'm doing. I'm a little bit more comfortable. Okay, next time, maybe I'm not going to buy a 1920s house. Maybe we'll shoot for 1980 and up, right?
But if you do buy a 1920s house, you have the knowledge of what you dealt with before, and so you're going into it with more eyes wide open, right? And so you're better able to prepare and deal with that.
Exactly. Yeah, and then paying attention to the market too. Like in Kansas City, it rains all the time. Salt pumps. All this. You don't even think about it until until the property manager calls you and say, "Hey, by the way, here's a $4,500 bill. The sump pump, needs to be replaced." Right. So yeah, and that was the biggest thing for me. And then even into the syndications I'm in. I mean, I get monthly communication. I see everything that they're doing to the property, where rent increased, and I have an inside scoop now and a personal relationship with syndications, where before I just was listening to podcasts. So I think that was for me and you can really put that in any area of life, even like the coaching, right? I mean, when the coaching, you jump in, you get involved. I mean, that you get that experience, and I think you benefit from it more too. So yeah.
No, I think that's true. So let's talk about coaching for a minute. Another thing I'm always fascinated to learn from people is, we all met through the same coaching community, Jason Drees coaching, and what was it about you that is this the first time you've ever done anything with coaching or joining a group like that, or is this just one of several you've done, or how's that worked out for you guys?
So for me, the only other thing, other coaches I had were baseball, football, basketball. I hadn't, and I really didn't even think about it. Even after I started, my W-2 in my career, which I'm in, flooring sales, I didn't even really think about coaching as a business, format, right? I just more was like, all right, you go to events, you learn products, you do PKs, and that was kind of it, But, somebody challenged me. It was like, if you want to get better at something, get a coach, So now, like, I have a personal trainer. I want to get better, get more results in the gym and more, better my health. So I got a, personal trainer there. I got a coaching program, that, like you said, with Jason Drees, which more so I think what it's done for me is it helps keep me accountable. I'm putting everything out there. You get vulnerable, with your coaches and, talk about the fears, the fear of failure, the limited beliefs around that. As you guys know, we talk a lot about the frame we're in, getting in alignment, and so that's been super helpful. I think for me is just for one, getting in the right frame of mind, being constantly reminded, being around people who want to grow, who want to do better. It's like, oh man, they're doing it. Let me, I can do that too, and then being on calls like this, right? I mean, I just love, it just keeps challenging me to grow. And I just love this space. So
how about you, Loren?
Yeah, so it's the first coaching experience I really had, other than like sports coaches, like Jarod was mentioning. And I really got interested in. I read Jason's book a few months ago, or I don't know, maybe a little less than a year ago, and just kind of got to the realization that I needed somebody that was going to be kind of outside of me, that was going to be able to look at my problems and see them in a different way than how I see them, because all of my fears and anxieties and thoughts and worries and everything, those tint how you see a problem. And I had a coaching call this morning, and we were talking about something, and I was just saying, I just got back from this break. I took a week and a half off when my daughter was born, and I'm just overwhelmed with my W-2 job and with the real estate stuff. And he's like, you need a transaction coordinator. And I'm like, well, he's like, why aren't you getting one, or why don't you have one now? And I'm like, I stammered around. I'm like, I don't really have a reason why I don't have one, besides that I don't want to give up the cash flow at the moment. And so we had a whole long conversation about that, and it just kind of, it brings another person's perspective that has different sets of experiences into things that I might not have thought of as quickly. I probably would have got there eventually, but just giving me kind of a sounding board and some time that's just me talking to somebody else about how I can move forward faster. And then the other reason is just wanting to have a group of people that are, doing really great things around me, because you are the average of who you spend your time with. And so I constantly try to elevate my game and be around people that are doing bigger and better things or smarter than me, so that I can move up to that next level.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I would agree with you guys. I've really benefited in those ways that you've mentioned, both in people I've met and I hired a one-on-one coach for about a year, and it is good to have someone who's not emotionally invested in your life bubble, where they kind of tell you what you want to hear, but they're kind of a neutral party, and they can point out things that you don't see or just feel normal to you or comfortable. And but I know, and this isn't by any means, we're not sponsored by Jason Drees. He's not paying me. He's welcome to, but he's not. But how do people, and there's lots of great coaches out there I'm discovering in lots of different communities, but I grew up kind of a cynic. I had some experiences early on, multi-level marketing, all these things, and kind of discovering there's a lot of hype and push to spend your money on resources and things. How would you tell someone who might be listening to this, be like, well, yeah, there's how do you determine where is a good value to put your money into investing in yourself, or how did you make that decision? Maybe.
Yeah, my first comment to that was that I think money invested into yourself is always a good dollar spent. Now, how do you pick a coach, or how is the coaching the right way? I had a lot of angst about that. Like, am I going to see an ROI from hiring a coach, or But at the end of the day, they're just like going into buying your first property or anything. There's a bit of a leap of faith that has to happen, and it's that risk mitigation thing again of this is a risk. I've been spending X amount of dollars on this coach over this period of time, and what's the worst that happens? Well, the worst that happens, I get very little out of it. Maybe I learn a few things, and I don't. I've lost that money. And over the grand scheme of things, is that money is the chance of getting more value out of that higher or lower than the risk to it, right? And for me, and where I want my business to be, and where I am at with my life, with my family and my job and my company I'm building, like, I needed to have that third-party person to look at things and help me move the ball forward to go at the pace that I wanted to. And so it made sense to me.
What are your thoughts, Jarod?
Yeah. So kind of piggybacking off Loren there, first thought that came to my mind was investing in your future, right? And it was, one thought that just came to me is like, it's amazing how much money I'll spend on my health and trying to, whether eat better, take vitamin, whatever, right? Because I'm investing in myself in that way. Well, why not invest in a coaching program, which is going to help me with my mindset, my growth, and my, my career and, my business career. So that just, I kind of think back to some of the coaching programs. I've had the opportunity. I started out in the 6-week mindset academy that they were doing. And I had the opportunity to do like 2 or 3 one-on-one coaching, in front of a group platform. And it's, kind of really putting yourself out there. And, some of the stuff I heard, it was not like big aha moments, but it was just real subtle things like, oh, hey, why don't you look at it from this angle? Mm-hmm. Or why don't you just change this up? What's the worst that can happen? Worst case scenario, I go, follow my dreams and it doesn't work out. Well, I can always go back and do flooring, right? Or, and so just having those beliefs or it was really what got me to where I was at. It was like, why, well, we all got kids here, right? What do we tell our kids? Go for it. You know what I mean? Just get it. My son just completed a Spartan race. He's 4 years old. And just completed a Spartan race, for kids. A little half-mile run. And, man, this guy just showed up and just did it, man. Ran almost the whole way. And so they, one thing they told me is like, how can you tell your kids to do this, but you're not going to, put yourself out there, right? And so just those little, little comments, have been a huge benefit. And now look here, I think that was 8 weeks ago when I started, and I just started a business.
Yeah. No, that's really good. I think I really agree with what you guys are saying. What's one of the things that struck me, because through the coaching and through some of the events and things I've become a part of, I've gotten to kind of be around some what I would call very successful people, and who have a high income, have are financially independent, all these things, and I'm struck by how often I hear them use something like, well, I really wanted to learn about short-term rentals, let's say, so I joined a mastermind that was $20,000 to learn more. And how much people who have really achieved what many of us are probably trying to achieve have no problem spending money. And I know people can say, well, they have it, but we could argue maybe they don't need it, but yet they find value, and they see a value in it that maybe the average person who is still kind of wishing and hoping versus doing struggles to find, because I think they do see it as investment in themselves, and sometimes it's just access to other people. What you got, Loren?
Yeah, and I was just saying, I think that some of that is the money is a bit of a gatekeeper more than the dollars, right? Yeah. Because if I'm trying to get into a room with got people that are more successful and are more intelligent than me, like some of those rooms that cost $10,000-$20,000 to get into, those are the people that I want to spend my time with, right? I could go to a free event, and there's nothing wrong with those people there. They're just on a different journey, but I might end up being the most successful one in the room, and like I said, nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't push me to be better.
Yeah. No, that's really true. I host a real estate meetup, because a couple years ago I started one and posted on Bigger Pockets, and we host it once a month, and we have some great people. I've made some great connections through it, but it is interesting. A couple months ago I was looking at the table of people, and it ranges from 4 people show up to sometimes 10 or 12. And but it's like, we're all kind of at a plateaued level, or there's a few guys have more doors, there's some still checking it out, but yeah, we're missing the access to the people who are doing 100 doors and starting syndications, those types of things. And I can tell sometimes we hit those mindset blocks of when you're like, well, what if you do this? Well, we talk ourselves out of ideas because we don't have that person in the room that's saying, yeah, we can do that. And it took me, I'm such a logical, I'm just a concrete sequential thinker. And I went to a live event through one of the coaching groups, and, I went there with a notebook to take notes and didn't really realize till the end that 85% of the people went there to meet other people, and just build that network and make those connections and put deals together. And so, yeah, I agree. I think it gives you access into that stuff.
Well, and just real quick on that, I know an operator that's here in Phoenix, and he went and joined a multifamily mentorship program. And these things were, it's $30,000-$40,000, right, on some of these. And when I first heard that, I was like, no way, I'm just going to hit the books, podcast, whatever, right? I'm going to get all the free education and content I need. Well, and I don't know if he pulled as much value out that he thought from that initial, but what he did is he networked and met eventually what became his partners, and now he just crossed $1 billion, of assets that he owns, or that they.
I would say he got acquired. His value.
I would say he got his value, right? Like, and then what he was telling me initially, he didn't think he did at first, right? And so, but now, this is, 2018, right? And we're in 5 years, here he is crossing $1 billion threshold. So, you just never know who you're going to meet or what value you're going to get out of it.
Yep.
So,
no, I think that's really good.
Which has changed my perspective on, okay, maybe, maybe I might spend a chunk of change on something to.
No, I think there's value. I do think, and I think you would agree, you have to vet it. You have to there's a lot of people who will take your money and sell you a workbook that you could find on YouTube for free. So, but I do think, I joined the Jason Dries program because I'm old enough that I've listened to the Bigger Pockets podcast since they just about started, and I watched Brandon Turner's mindset change as he was recording weekly. You could just see the growth in how he in changes, and it's like there's something to this coaching that he was doing. And I also had a pivotal moment, kind of like one of you mentioned. Like I remember it was in North Carolina. Just to bring it all, everything comes back to North Carolina now. I was sitting on a beach by myself, just kind of spending the day by myself and reflecting, and I realized that I've been doing it one way for 49 years of my life, or 48 years, and if I want to keep doing those things, I know exactly how it's going to end up because I've seen those results. Or I could do things differently than I've done them before, and then see if I have different results. And that's really one of the reasons for me why I even decided to go with coaching, because I used to say that was dumb or a waste of money, and you know, I know where those results get me, so I can always go back, and I found great value in having a coach and again being around those people. So
and there'll be a lot of people that tell you that your spend on a coach is not a wise investment, right? And I think you just have to kind of be prepared for that, because there are a lot of people that are locked in that 9-to-5 mindset, you know, the W-2 mindset of I'm just going to do this until I'm 65, and then hopefully I have a few years to enjoy retirement, and that's just not the life I want, and so I can't take the same path as everybody else.
Yeah.
Well, and
go ahead.
To that point, I mean, sorry, Derek.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's amazing how many people I talk to, because you get excited about this stuff, right? You just want to share it, you know, with, you know, your family, friends, and everybody, and they're just like, oh, that's cool, or, you know, but I have no desire. Yeah, there's just, like, absolutely no desire there, and I'm like, okay, you know, let me just, you know, keep doing what I'm doing, but, you know, and the thing that the coaching program has done for me, too, is it challenges me to think big, right? You know, Jason Dries' book is called Do the Impossible, right? It just, the big, hairy, audacious goals, right, that we set for ourselves. And, I mean, it's, yeah, you just think bigger, but not everybody has that desire.
Don't you think sometimes, too, we struggle? And I think this is a particular, I mean, maybe it's a human thing. I think it's really good in America because we were pioneers, but we're kind of self-reliant, almost to a fault, where I'm just going to go do it myself. I don't need anyone else. I can figure it out. And I think a lot of people and some people I think can be successful to a point, but they just work so much harder and go through so much more pain because they don't want to let anyone else speak into their life, or they don't feel like they need other people to help them, or, you know, maybe they think they're going to get hurt, those types of things. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what Jarod and I both said about having a coach growing up, you know, there's a reason that they put coaches in sports teams, right?
Yep.
It's to make you better than what you are. Anybody can go and, say, run a marathon, figure out how to run a marathon, but I guarantee you would have a better time if you got a coach and talk to you how to eat, how to train. You know, the same thing for Spartan races, or I was doing CrossFit for years, same thing there, right? They push you to be a better version of yourself and have an outside opinion of how you can do that.
Well, that's good. So what are you guys working on now? What's next for you? What's your big goals? What's the next things you're hoping to accomplish in the next few months, year, 5 years, whatever?
Yeah, so for me, so it's, you know, like I mentioned earlier, I just started a business called Optimal Equity Group, and, you know, it's going to be a real estate investment firm that partners with the very best operators in emerging markets. And so what my goal is going to be just growing that business, which is going to be networking, putting myself out there, and really the purpose of starting this was to just bring value to others. I mean, that's what somebody did to me, right? A lot of people don't know that you know, can even invest in a syndication, or don't even know what a syndication is. And I know I didn't 2 years ago. And so, you know, it's just bringing that value to others. You know, a lot of people just know the 401k route, IRA, Roth, you know, and which there's nothing wrong with that, but I think this is just another investment vehicle to help get you to your goals, right? And so those are my, what I'm working on right now, and just keep with the coaching, keep with the accountability, showing up for, podcast and just networking, right? Your net worth is, or your network is your net worth, right? So
that's good. How about you, Loren? What's next?
So my overall why for why I'm doing this is, all about my family. I started down this path in 2020 because I wanted to spend more time traveling with my kids and wife. But over the next year, we're going to be rapidly growing our business so that I can have that lifestyle with them that I want, right? So our business goals are, we're going to buy 300 houses, 10 mobile home parks. I'm looking to bring in $400,000 a year as income and a few other things. But the bigger one for me is I want to be able to get to a point where I have 1 week of vacation with my family every month for this foreseeable future. And that's what really drives me. To me, the money is just the vehicle to get there. But I'm looking to build something big that's multi-generational, that's going to influence my kids' kids, and teach them how to not be stuck into the 9-to-5 mindset. And if they want to work an office job, that's great. But I want to make sure that they know that they have options that are beyond the scope of what most people see as possible.
That's really cool.
So real quick, if I could just jump in, I think what Loren just did right there, that's a result of having a coach, right? They tell you to be specific. All right, what are your goals, right? And Loren, I think that's awesome, man. That's my why too. Why I'm doing all this is I want to spend more time with my son and my daughter. I want to be able to travel and travel 2 times a year with my wife exclusively, and 4 times with the kids, and just live life, right? Life is too short to not enjoy. And, so that's definitely my why. And to be specific on my goals is, I want to raise $1 million in the next 6 months, right?
That's awesome.
And, it's a, big audacious goal, but I think it's doable. And again, I think, as a result of this coaching, I just saw that with Loren. He was very specific, and I remember the coaches tell you, be specific on your goals.
Yeah.
Don't just be broad with them, right? Because everybody can be broad.
You gotta feel it. Because there's times that suck, and that stuff that you feel gets you through that crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do they tell you with where the suck times, or the lean into that overwhelm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Jason Drees was talking about, that is when I'm overwhelmed and I get this doubt and fear and all this, is lean into that, right? And just, that's where shaping that frame of mind and getting to an alignment, right, can really excel you. So which is really easier said than done, but yeah.
So let me ask you this, and I appreciate your guys' time. One thing that I try to remember is people listening to this. Again, it can be easy to get overwhelmed when you hear people share what you're sharing. If you're just at the starting point, or you're at the point of the wall or frustration of, I know I want to do something different. I know I'd like to spend more time with my family. I know I'd like to leave this job. I realize life is short. I think as we get older, we feel pressure of age, and how am I going to retire? What am I going to do? And sometimes we can miss out on that. We're all humans. We all have same struggles and stuff. But what would you want to tell someone who might be listening to this and be like, well, it sure sounds easy for you, but how do I get started? Like, how would you tell someone, where would they start?
So I'll go ahead and go there. Yeah, I think, I was on a podcast recently, and he asked me if I was in front of a bunch of kids about to graduate high school, and I had all their attention, what would you say? And what came to mind is just go for your dreams, right? Like you said, life is just too short. Worst that can happen is you go get a 9-to-5 job and, retire at 65, right? But if you don't go to for your dreams, you just don't know. And for me, what got me over that starting line was, is the education, I think, is necessary, right? But I heard, I don't know if you've heard of Jake and Gino, but they said education plus action equals results. And for me, that is has been so true. And once you get some, motivation and some, steam behind you, I mean, you can really get going on this, on this track. And it's, that would be what I would say, is just get started. Just, take that action, but you don't know unless you try, right?
I think that's really good. What about you, Loren?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I think there's two pieces just getting started that are really important. First is thinking about things like a mindset of think about how you can do something versus why you can't do something. I knew I wanted to buy real estate starting in early 2020 when COVID first hit, but didn't do anything about it until May of 2021. I was at a bonfire and I said, I want to do this thing, blah blah, and he's like, well, if you find a deal, you can find money. Right, and that light switch went off of I can do this, and from there it just spiraled and ended up where I am today. So don't think about why you can't do something. There's always a way to do it. You just have to figure out how. And I think the next piece is figure out exactly what you want to do and where you want to do it. Be specific about it and start taking small actions towards that. Right. So if you want to have more time with your family, okay, I want to go do real estate. Okay, what part of real estate? I want to do long-term rentals. Okay, I want to do multifamily. I want to do multifamily in North Carolina. I want to do multifamily in Eastern North Carolina, all the way down to the city. The more specific you are, the easier it is going to be to find something that meets your criteria that you can move forward on. If you say, I want to buy real estate and just leave it at that, you're going to have so many things that come at you that you'll just give up and you will never take the next step forward. So be specific on what you want to do, where you want to do it, and how you want to do it. And then know that you can do it. You just have to figure out how. Don't say I can't, because there's always a way to do it.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah, I think I've definitely I think I shared this in a previous podcast, but I'm definitely trying to focus on clarity. I think you're right. I think it's easy to be general, and as many people have said, real estate gives you so many options of what you can do. And really even business in general, not just real estate. There's just lots of different ways to create income outside of a W-2, but you do want to kind of start to narrow down and be specific about what it is you want to do, and I think establishing that why.
Yeah, I think that goes for goals. I think that goes for goal setting in all aspects, right? If you want to get fitter, that's not a goal. I want to lose 30 pounds and be able to lift, power clean 230, well, that's a goal. Right. That's how you set goals,
Yeah. No, that's good.
When I think one too is back to what you were saying. I mean, I got my goal sheet, right? Just being specific, and financial, family, spiritual, right? See, Loren's got his too.
Should I be telling that I don't grab my goal sheet? Is that?
I mean, it's.
I should probably take that as a learning thing.
Right. Derek's got it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Derek. I didn't mean to.
It's all right. No, it's fine. No, that's why I'm here to make you guys look good. It's all right. So I'm here to give people hope. It can be done. So, but no, I think you're right. I think that was the best object lesson you could have, is you guys know exactly what you want. And sometimes I think I let myself fall into I'd like to just get healthier, or I'd like to make more money. And I think clarity is so important. So.
Well, and one, if you don't mind, one quick thing to touch on that, based on what Loren says, once you kind of get specific on what you want to do, is, go to these your local RIA meetups, or go to these networking events. It's amazing how many people that are so further along the road than you are so willing to help. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like, hey, I'm looking to do this, and that. Okay, well, hey, go talk to John over there, man. He's got, 45 houses, or talk to Loren, he's about to close on his 47th, right? And it's just,
tomorrow.
The networking. Yeah, tomorrow. See, look, that's awesome, man.
No, I agree. I think we watched other people try to start meetups here in our area, and I mean, I live in a college town, so there are rental landlord. I mean, there are lots of real estate investors in my community, and there is zero real estate meetups until we started one, because but it is true. I heard this on a podcast a long time ago, if you start the meetup, you become the expert, and it really is true. People ask me ridiculous questions that they shouldn't be asking me because I don't have my goal sheet on the wall. But we just committed that, hey, we're going to do it for a year. We're going to meet every month consistently. We meet at a restaurant, so nobody shows up. We could eat, and we've had people show up every month, and it's been a great time. So I do think getting out and networking is a big, and we don't charge for our. I mean, there's lots of meetups that don't charge anything at all to go to, and I think that's great advice. So.
We started a meetup. I started a meetup earlier this summer as well, and similar. We don't charge and just bring people in. And I'm a firm believer that you should always be 2 levels of mentorship, like a mentor that's helping you, and then you should be mentoring people that are below you. So I love going to that meetup. I didn't get to go to the last one because we just had our daughter, but it's really interesting to see where people are at and where they're stuck at. And you do end up becoming a bit of the expert, whether you believe you're an expert or not. I guess the farther along I get in this, I realize that no one really thinks of themselves as an expert, but we all have our own little levels of expertise, and everybody views everybody else as being better than them for some reason, even though they've all accomplished, things far greater than most of the population that are in that room.
Yep. No, I think just taking, to piggyback on what you said, I think just taking action moves you further ahead than a lot of folks around us, because most people spend their time talking about it and sitting on the couch lamenting their life versus taking steps. And whether you have 47 units in 2 years, or you're like me and you have 12 doors in almost 12 years, it's just you're just taking steps and you're learning so. Well, thanks, guys. If any people want to get a hold of you, is there a website? We'll put some links down, but where can people find out more about you? And is there anything you need or looking for that people might be able to help you with?
So I'm always looking for more deals in North Carolina, single-family, multifamily homes, as well as people that are interested in potentially being private money lenders. And you can reach out to me at Instagram or on TikTok at DadLifeLoren.
All right, we'll put links to that. How about you, Jarod?
So for me, I'm, again, just started Optimal Equity Group. So if anybody is interested in, having some more conversations around syndication, what that is, what that looks like, you can go to my website, www.optimalequitygroup.com. You can reach me on Instagram, Jarod_Alexander 2489. Or I'm on, Facebook, LinkedIn, all those all the social media platforms as well. Or you can call me. I've heard people give their numbers out, so I was like, hey, I'll give my, my number's 480-773-9336. I mean, as you guys, I love talking about this stuff, and so I'm always open to a conversation.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks, guys, for participating in this. I appreciate it. I've learned some stuff. It's definitely made me think about some things. Thanks to you that are listening. We appreciate you sticking with us. And, again, we have episodes out 3 times a week from 7 different hosts, so we appreciate it, and we just encourage you to go do something. So have a great day.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. It was an amazing episode. We know we sure learned a lot, and we hope you did as well. We want to take a second and thank you so much for viewing or listening to this episode. And please just know that we only ask for one favor, and that is to make this life magnificent. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.